Biggest game changer for system operators is that through the energy transition we have to manage the paradigm shift where we move from a system where thermal plants adjust themselves to the demand that we see in the market, both industrial and retail, and we go to a system where we have mainly renewables that are intermittent and demand has to adjust itself towards that available production capacity. That means that for the retail consumer you come to in a system where he has to actively participate with his electrical vehicle, with his heat pump, with his electrical boilers, etc. So he needs to be actively involved through digital services to engage himself. And the industrial side, they will have to change their asset configuration because they have to fully decarbonize by 2050, which means that they have to electrify some of their processes. They will use some hydrogen, and so that means as well that their interaction with our system will fully change. Well, it depends. If we don't manage it, it will be clearly a threat. One can imagine if we have many electrical vehicles in our system and they all start to charge at the same time, that it will be very complex to keep the lights on. However, of course, if we manage this transition well through digital technology, we actually can use those batteries of those cars to smoothen the load on our system. And actually, everybody can benefit from this change. First of all, the consumer himself, he could actually benefit from lower prices because he will consume at the moment that the price is low, so charge his battery at moments that we have a lot of, for instance, solar production. You have the supplier who offers services to the client and who can actually benefit from the fact that he can give additional benefits in those services. As an example, he can give more green energy by better optimizing the footprint of his client. And as well for us there is a benefit because the more flexibility we have access to, the more renewables we can integrate at low cost. So of course, if you want to address the changing needs, you need to better understand what are their needs and how are they changing. And so there actually we are in a privileged position. First of all, if you look at the industrial clients, we get more and more clients with questions on how they get themselves ready by 2050. And even some of them, if you look at the tech companies like Tesla and Google, they even ask to get themselves ready by 2030 or 2035 with questions like how can we be fully green, carbon free by 2030 or 2035. And these are interesting questions because they learn us how that those users of our grid will use that grid in a different way. And so that is something where we collaborate with them to see how we can achieve that together with them by these actually very ambitious dates. Secondly, what we do is we have set up an ecosystem which is called IO Energy, where we do the same thing actually in the retail segment. Obviously, retail clients are not showing up themselves asking these kind of questions, but we have the suppliers that are asking themselves, how can I stay relevant towards those clients going forward? And they can only do that if they have a system operation that is in line with those new needs. And so we learn together with the clients, with the suppliers, with startup companies, also with people from outside of the sector, like the automotive sector, like banks, how those new services would look like within that ecosystem. And so that is the way how we little by little get all the building blocks so that at the moment that the real needs are happening at the client, that we can deliver them. Well, the Internet of Energy started about 18 months ago, and we launched at that moment of time, the ecosystem launched with all the partners together, 8 use cases. And those 8 use cases had many dimensions that learnings would come from, and that we also see now at the moment that we're closing this first phase of sandboxing, that we see actually also coming out in a positive way. First of all, of course, a lot of technical questions about feasibility. Can we exchange data at that speed with each other, and all these kind of technical questions that you need to be able to deliver such a service. Second thing, is there a real business case? Can you make money on such a situation? And third one is, of course, is the consumer benefiting from that? So is he not losing comfort, but is he gaining on comfort? There are things that we learned, so that makes for us very clear that this is the right way to go. Next to that, of course, an ecosystem as well learns you how to work together with parties that you have never worked with together. For instance, we never worked together with car companies before, and so we learned to work, what are the ways how they work, how do we exchange things together. And as well, we had to learn how do we set up systems together so that we share or intellectual property with each other in the benefit from everybody, how we create open innovation platforms. So a lot of learning actually was been done for us, but also with all the partners that we had in that system. Yes, very much so. So what you see actually is that while before we were relatively separated business, one was occupied with the direct connection of clients. We had actually limited clients at our TSO level, and we're basically busy with big system operations situations like keeping the lights on, etc. So what you see in the new system is that we have to collaborate much more to have that system operation function in a smooth way for the consumer. On the one hand, we need to much better understand what those consumers are doing on the grid, also on the distribution grid, to ensure that we can keep the lights on. DSOs will have to collaborate much more with us because they have some new system challenges that they didn't have before, like congestion management, but also they need to be able to scale some of those services, and to scale them, of course, they come into contact with the bigger flows of energy that are on our grid. And therefore, it's very important that we better collaborate with each other, but also that we understand and respect each other's role into this new system.